worked on Practical Magic. There's been a lot of talk about HBO Max doing like a reboot or a reimagining. I'm not exactly what the right term is. When did you hear about that, and what are your thoughts on HBO Max taking a crack at it?
God bless them. Practical Magic is. I have a 9-year-old and a 9-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old daughter. And Practical Magic is, I think, literally the only thing I've written that they can watch. And even then, they have to fast forward through the scary Nicole parts. It's funny. I love Practical Magic. Practical Magic for me is also a movie where there was a different version, which it's sort of weirdly in the same context that we're discussing sort of how the world has become more interested in this range of dark and light in the same narrative object, which I think is more recent, or that you can have significance and depth and loss in fantasy or science fiction in ways that are more nuanced. So there was a cut of Practical Magic before reshoots that Griffin put together, which was stunningly beautiful. It was more 50-50 between Sandy and Nicole. And this haunting of Nicole was the counterpoint to this sort of emergence of Sandy. It was more of a ghost story. It was really beautiful. It was weird. Griffin Dunne as a director is wonderful because you can't quite locate the object in genre. And there was a version of that which at one point, years later, I tried to find because I had it on videotape. I was calling Griffin and we were talking about it. It got caught up in a sort of marketing thing at Warner Brothers and moved forward. So in a way that I think didn't serve it ultimately. I fundamentally believe that if HBO Max takes it now and are able to kind of play into the darkness a little more, as well as the joy, I think that will be great.
I find it so interesting talking to people about films when, you have a completely different version. And it's, for me, with the advent of home video and with HBO Max, you would think that, something that they could put on HBO Max would be the alternate cut of Practical Magic. That's like a great thing that fans would want to tune in for.
Right. And here's why they don't, at least up until now, is because those cuts are almost never finished. So typically what happens is you screen these things where the visual effects are still temp. You're testing them while they're temp. The score is not fit. So that, like, for me, the one great version of this in my career is I Am Legend, where the version that we wrote, the version that we made originally is what's called the alternative cut, right? But that's this weird treat where I can literally go, no, that's the one we meant to make. That's the one we made later. And you can, what I mean? And but almost every movie has that. Right? Or a lot of them do. We hear about the Snyder Cut a lot. Like that's so often the case, is that you sort of run down a path and then you manage it towards the end, and sometimes for exactly the right reasons, and sometimes for exactly the wrong reasons, right? The right reasons being creative perseverance, and the wrong reasons being fear. And how that broth informs the end of a movie, is significant. And yes, I think it would be amazing, and somewhere in the archives are all the versions you're talking about. Somebody would have to commit to going back and having it be a project of finishing them. But I think people would actually love them.